So you joined me today testing out the Ford Mustang Mach-E, which is a vehicle I've already covered on this channel, but I wanted to put it through the ringer, which is the somewhat harsh conditions of a Canadian winter. So I've been driving this car for the past 2 weeks through quite a cold December, so come along and I'll share with you everything that I have found out in my time testing out this product. Right, before we even set off, I probably should say that this Mach-E is the all-wheel drive version. It has the extended battery pack option, so that means it's a 91 kilowatt hour battery pack, and for the 2022 model year there was a special edition, the Ice White, which I'm driving right now. That has the white leather interior, the white Mustang badges, and the white painted arches, which on a normal Mach-E are painted black. And I have already tested out the Mach-E before. Please don't refer to this video as a review. This is more a living with experience in what is far from optimal conditions. Please go check out my original thoughts of the Mach-E in its own separate video, link up above now. And the fact of the matter is this: I still very much like the Mach-E. I think it's a very good EV and it's quite a nice space to spend time in. Unfortunately, there have been more than a few reasons why in the past 2 weeks of living with it, that not that I couldn't own a Mach-E, but that I don't think I could own an EV for quite some time. So the first thing to bring up is, of course, range. It's primarily the only thing people want to talk about when we're talking about the capability of an EV. And yes, the range has suffered significantly due to the cold weather. And to give you some context, we have gone through a range of about 0 degrees Celsius to minus 37 degrees Celsius in the time I have been testing this product. Some of you might be watching, and that is an extremely unlikely temperature range for you. And it's not that it's uncommon out here in Southern Alberta. You would expect at least 1 week a year for it feeling like this. So if the EV was your only vehicle, there might be some things you need to consider that I'll bring up in this video. So I distracted myself. Let's talk about range. The standard battery pack for the Mach-E is meant to go 360 kilometers. It has the extended battery pack option, so that means it's a 91 kilowatt hour battery pack, and it can go up to, according to the government, 446 kilometers on a full charge. But in my time testing, I have never seen anywhere close to that number. I picked it up from Ford on a minus 32 degree day with 100% charge and 240 kilometers indicated. On the next time I filled it up to 100%, it was indicating 224 kilometers of range. But the big problem is that these EVs should be stored in optimal conditions, and for me that didn't exist this Christmas. I had to park this Mustang Mach-E outside at all times, and at the times where I was able to plug it in to a household charger, the charger that Ford includes with the vehicle, it never added any range. It didn't even maintain the range. The typical drop that I saw overnight with the Mach-E in minus, let's say, 25 to minus 35 degree weather was about 40 kilometers overnight. By the point that I'm at now, where it's currently minus 9 and it has been for the past week, I would say maybe 5 to 10 kilometers has vanished overnight, which is a lot more reasonable. But you know, the reason I'm bringing this up is that this is something I was very much aware of. If you own an EV, or you're planning to own an EV, you should have a place to park it up at night. So what is it like for the people that can't, like I haven't been able to for the past 2 weeks? What are they going to have to deal with? And it's scenarios such as these, which is a bit unfortunate if there really is a mandate coming that all cars have to be EV by a certain date. I think some are a bit too aggressive. I think some aren't aggressive enough, and this is someone that does like an EV driving experience. But at the current state of this technology, you do have to make a lot of excuses for it. So one of the last big things to bring up with the overall EV winter driving experience is what is charging like. In my time driving, I have used level 2 and level 3 chargers, and the level 2s were definitely a lot more reliable. Obviously, they're significantly slower and charge at a different price point. So for me, the level 2 charging for a few hours at a time where I knew I had to run some other chores like write my exams at university or go shopping at the mall, that all works quite well. But on the 4 occasions that I used a level 3 charger, it was troublesome at best. The first time I used a charging station, the plug-in didn't work, the card reader didn't work, nothing on the screen worked, so that was a little bit unfortunate. I moved over to the next machine that was directly beside it, and I had to wrestle with that 150 kilowatt charging plug with all of my might. With those freezing conditions, that was one thing I really didn't ever consider, was how is the infrastructure going to be responding in times of suboptimal conditions. And yes, I had to wrestle with a rubber hose to plug this thing in. And a very fortunate glitch for me is that when I plugged it in, it didn't take my credit card information. It just started charging and said this session is on us. So that was a positive. But the next 2 times I did have to pay. For the peak kilowatts, it was only getting around 56, 57 in minus 25 degree weather. I then went back on a day where it was around -3, and I was getting to, let's say, 75, 78 kilowatts of charging speed using Electrify Canada, those level 3 charging stations. In conditions and days like these, it's annoying that they charge you by the minute as opposed to the amount of energy delivered. I'm sure they had their reasons why. Maybe they want to charge people a minute so that you limit your time in that space, that charging space, so someone else can come along and charge up their car. Fine, I can understand that argument, but if you're buying an EV, you really need to consider that. You need to consider everything I've said, because EVs are brilliant and I still want to own one, but there is no chance now, after living with it for these past 2 weeks, that an EV would be my only car. There's also been one horrendously horrible issue with this Mach-E specifically, or at least I hope specifically just with this one, and that's that the heater on my feet doesn't work. It works everywhere else through the cabin. I can reach down here, I can feel the air blowing quite warm air onto what would be my passenger's feet. The windshield rarely gets fogged up, and I get lukewarm air coming out of the vents on the dashboard, but at no point in my time driving has warm air blown onto my feet despite being elsewhere in the cabin, and that has been torture for me. Maybe 2 last things to mention is that the last time I tested the Mach-E, it didn't have Blue Cruise, the new lane keep assist system from Ford, and it's all operated here just past the steering wheel. This little black plastic portion is watching your eyes to make sure you're not distracted going down the road, and I haven't used it that much because, like I said, with a heater that isn't working, I'm relying on my heater in the steering wheel and on my bum and back to keep me warm, so I was always gripping onto the wheel no matter what. And as a system that's meant to be hands-free but isn't really, what's the point of that? You may find that living with the Mach-E, you do have to constantly explain to new people getting in or out of the car how to get in and out of the car. Sometimes my friends and family have said that the little buttons that you use to get into the Mach-E aren't illuminating, so in the middle of the night, that's hard to explain to someone how to get into the car. And for the interior handles, I think those are a little more intuitive, but still, if you don't like repeating yourself. These unconventional door handles might not only irritate you, but irritate others. The last time I tested out the Mach-E, it didn't feature some of these games and features that you can use whilst parked up on the huge touchscreen. Outside of playing Sudoku, really the only other game that gets my interest is this Double Sum, which is a game I fondly remember from my high school days. So there you go. Those are my thoughts living with a Mach-E during the harsh reality of Canadian winters. If you're someone that never suffers with anything less than 0 degrees Celsius, you probably didn't click on this video anyways. But if you're someone that is seriously considering not only a Mach-E but an EV, and you live in conditions such as these, perhaps the two biggest things that I would say to you is, if it really is your only car, please have an understanding of what you need to provide for the car so that it provides you with the same range and charging speeds and results every time you get into it. And maybe the other word of advice is, I don't think I could buy an EV with all of this technology and all of these products that are coming out so rapidly. I feel like this is going to be outdated in 3-4 years, and with the degradation that I'm sure the battery is suffering in conditions such as these, it's probably not going to be that great on resale value. So if you're someone out there that can afford a lease on an electric car, I think that is a much safer option. So thank you very much to watching this video. I know it's been more of a ramble than it has a review, but hopefully someone out there takes something of value out of this, and I have done my job providing information to you. So thank you very much for taking the time to watching this video, and I hope to see you sometime soon in my next car review.